Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. So my computer just made the a weird little noise. A bell went off from somewhere, and I don't know where. So if you hear a bell going off during this stream, I'm working on it. I just don't know where it's coming from. I have a billion tabs open, so I'll get there. Here we go. Back to his stupid ass questions.
Busy.
Now, at the Bundy scene on the 13th, there were only approximately 19 items seized, correct?
I don't know the exact number.
It wasn't a large number, was it?
No, it wasn't extremely large.
And at the Rockingham scene, there were an equally, about the same number. I think it was 21 collected on the 13th, correct?
That sounds approximately accurate.
It was not a large number of items.
Not overly large, no.
Now, does it take a long period of time for the person responsible to prepare the reports that describe those items? Well, let me rephrase that. The form that's used to enter those items into property is not a terribly complicated form, is it?
Are we talking about a property report form?
Yeah.
The form itself is not complicated, no.
And would you agree that it's not terribly time consuming to fill out one of those reports to catalog 19 items?
I'm not sure what you mean by terribly time consuming. It does take a while. Just writing the words on the paper doesn't take very long, but that's not the only part of the process.
In your opinion, is not having enough time to write the reports an adequate excuse for not getting those items booked until the 16th? Rephrase the question. In your opinion, is it acceptable as the manager of the lab that items not get to booking for the reason that the criminalist has not filled out the reports?
Well, just the function of not filling out the report in and of itself would not be acceptable. I'd want to know why the report was not filled out.
You are aware, are you not, that Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola at no time counted the number of swatches that they collected for each individual blood drop?
That's my understanding, yes.
And so that there is no way of telling how many swatches they picked up from the ground and took back to the evidence processing room.
Sustained.
There,
Is there any way to tell how
yeah,
many swatches were picked up?
yeah. They
On the
numbered them
13th.
all. They put them in envelopes, and they said this is number 114. If there's 3 swatches in number 114, then that's 3. You can count 1, 2, 3. You can do that.
From the Bundy scene or the Rockingham scene and taken back to the lab.
No, there is not.
In your opinion, is that an acceptable procedure for collecting swatches, to not track how many you collect?
Yes.
That's acceptable?
Yes.
Is that your practice?
To not count the number?
Yes.
Didn't used to be.
It didn't used to be?
No, I never used to count the number of swatches. I obviously became an issue in this case, and in the future, in an interest just to be able to answer that, I have tended to record them, but no, I don't think it's vital information.
That's the only purpose you think is served by counting the number of swatches that are taken, is just in case a defense attorney asks you a question?
To me, as far as when you're collecting them, the number of swatches you use to pick up a particular stain is not of particular importance. It's described when the criminal receives the item.
So yes, dumbass. Yes, just in case you ask stupid questions like that.
For analysis, say a serology or something like that.
That's like Nan has to count how many blankets each person gets. And the doctors need to know that.
That has to do with how much evidence is available for testing at that point. But as far as just collecting it and recording, I don't think that's a terribly important piece of information.
Then would you agree that because that information is not kept, that swatches could disappear or be taken, and there would be no way
No.
of checking that? Now, you've booked into evidence items from the Bronco as a result of the stains that you removed on September 1st that you testified about, correct?
That's correct.
And you booked in approximately 7 or 8 different items?
I'd have to look at my report. It was not a large number.
Let me show you. Let me show you a property report for
Hi,
a number of items.
Terry.
Take a look at
Hello,
that yourself.
hello.
Okay.
And that's a property report, or perhaps it's a partial report, listing the items that you collected on September 1st, correct?
Yes, it is.
And for every single item on that list, you specified the number of swatches that you collected, correct?
That's correct.
Had that become an issue in this case as of September 1st when you did this?
I believe it had.
And it's only in response to it being raised as an issue in this case that you now have a practice of counting swatches.
That's correct.
Have you passed that on to the people that work for you? Is that now a policy of SID for people to count swatches?
There are actually two questions there. No, it is not a policy, and yes, we have suggested that's something people do.
So it's just kind of, you can do it if you want to.
At this point, the fact that we do not have a manual that establishes our field policies, where all this is laid out, we are recommending certain procedures to people.
But you have the ability to set a policy, don't you? You said that before.
I think we've covered this, Council.
The actual property report itself has a column that asks for quantity of an item, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And this is an official report required by the Los Angeles Police Department, correct?
Yes, it's a generic property report.
And is your understanding that the police department requires that you fill in the quantity of items that are collected?
I think we've covered this, Council.
I don't think there's been testimony about the police
The
department.
form is there. It has the number of items. It wasn't filled out on many of these things. That's been established. Let's proceed.
Now, you've been asked about the search of the Bronco on August 26, 1994, correct?
Yes, I have, I believe.
And I believe Exhibit 200 is the checklist. Is that correct, Ms. Robertson? I have a copy of it.
Mr. Blaze, the vehicle search notice?
Yes. I would like to place on the the last page of this.
Certainly. Did we confirm the exhibit number?
Yes. Does this appear to be the item list for evidence items collected as a result of that search?
Yes, it does.
Would you agree that virtually every blank on that form has been filled in?
Yes, that's correct.
And the time collected for each individual item has been filled in to the minute, has it not?
Appears to be, yes.
And the identification of the person collecting the item is filled in for every item, isn't it?
Yes.
In your view, is this the proper way that these forms should be filled out?
Overruled.
I don't feel it's necessary for all of the evidence items to have their time down to the minute. Like I testified before, I tend to bracket items from when the original one was picked up until the last one.
I think you testified on direct as to this particular form that some of your people don't even understand what I believe it was the ID photo column means. Remember that? Did I misrecollecting that? There was one column on here that you indicated your people don't even know what it means. There's disagreement.
Why don't you rephrase the question?
You remember testifying yesterday about part of this form that has been inconsistently interpreted as to what it means by your own people?
Well, first out, if I'm not sure it was part of this form, if you'll notice, this one is slightly different than the one, because we have a couple of different forms when it comes to evidence collection. I'd want to check that one and make sure exactly which one it is. But there was a column that we talked about regarding a inconsistency as to how that was interpreted.
Now, on this particular search, Michelle Kessler and a criminalist by the name of Morikovo, I believe, you have to correct my pronunciation on that, Mastrokovo?
Masterkova, yes.
Mastrokovo, worked on this particular search, correct?
I believe there was also Mr. Raquel was involved in that.
And they have indicated individually, and now they were working as a team, were they not?
Yes, they were.
And on that form, they indicated which particular person collected which particular item, correct?
Yes, they did.
Now, did I understand your direct testimony to be that if you have two people working as a team, it's less important for them to identify who actually picks up an item from the ground?
I think I'd want to see exactly what I said on that.
Well, let me ask you that. If you have two people working as a team, do you think it's less important than if you had just one person processing a scene for them to keep track of who actually picks the item up off the ground?
Well, obviously, if only one person is involved in it from beginning to end, then all the notations would be the same. I wouldn't expect you to have to fill in each one. As far as both people, it's information that would be nice to know. Whether it's vital or not, I don't believe so.
But it becomes more important where you have two people working as a team, obviously, than if you had one person working alone, correct?
That's more important because with one person, it's obvious who did it.
You know of any police agency that has as a procedure, let me rephrase that. Do you know of any police agency that allows or that does not require people who physically collect an item to identify it and initial it with their initials?
Oh,
No, I do not.
That's a standard police procedure, is it not? That the person who picks it up is the person who initials it. That establishes the chain of custody, correct?
oh,
Part of the procedures in criminalistics is to initial or identify an item that's collected.
It is not satisfactory to have somebody else who might have been thinking about collecting the item initial it rather than the person who collects it, is it?
It would be nice if the person that was involved in it did initial that item and did mark and be involved in it. But it is also a situation where, and we're talking about the collection process, where if two people are involved and two people see what's going on, that information becomes less important.
So it's your opinion that it's just nice to have that information, not essential that you have it.
If two people are working together on it and they're collecting them together, I don't believe it's essential, but it would be nice to have that information there. Yes.
Now, if some question was raised down the line about possibly tampering with a particular item, wouldn't you want to know who picked it up off the ground?
sustained.
Isn't that an important piece of information for chain of custody?
Oh.
As to who collected it,
Yes.
it's part of the process.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the morning session. Please remember my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. We'll stand in recess until 1 o'clock. Mr. Matheson, 1 o'clock. Simpson matter, all parties are again present. Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please.
One quick question before we bring the jurors in.
Yes.
I'm a little unclear on our blood vial chart as to your ruling as to when I can bring it out. It's my understanding that I have to establish an amount before I can start taking blood off of it, or do I have to establish every amount that was withdrawn
Now,
from
you
it?
can ask, there was a challenge as to the accuracy of the items that were there. You can ask Mr. Matheson what he knows about what he took and start establishing the foundation for it.
I mean, with the chart there, though?
No. All right, let's have the jurors.
The amounts that were written on that come off. I wasn't intending to leave those on.
I understand that, Counsel.
All right.
Let the record reflect we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Matheson, would you resume the witness stand, please? All right, Gregory Matheson is again on the witness stand undergoing cross-examination by Mr. Blazier. Good afternoon, Mr. Matheson.
Good afternoon.
You're reminded you're still under oath, sir. Mr. Blazier, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening. Good afternoon. Mr. Matheson, I want to ask you some questions about the socks, item number 13. Now, would you agree that of the items collected at Rockingham, this was obviously a very significant piece of evidence.
Overruled.
Yes, it was.
And when did you first become aware that a pair of socks had been found at the foot of Mr. Simpson's bed?
I was probably when, upon doing the inventory on June 29th.
That's the first time you became aware of the socks?
It's the first moment that sticks in my mind, yes.
Didn't you have a meeting on the 14th where you discussed the evidence that had been obtained on the 13th with Mr. Fung and Ms. Mazzola and others at the lab?
We discussed some of the items, yes.
And no one discussed the socks?
Not to my knowledge. At that point, I believe our focus was mainly on the items picked up at the Bundy scene and the glove from Rockingham.
Now, you had, before the 29th, you had a number of meetings, did you not, with Ms. Clark and other people at the lab about the items that were collected on the 13th, did you not?
I've had many meetings with the DA's office association with this case.
Before the 29th?
I did meet with them at times, and I'm sure we talked about evidence, but I don't specifically remember discussions regarding the socks.
You want to refer to your cron notes in terms of, let me ask you this. You had a meeting with Detective Van Adder on the 15th to discuss what evidence should be examined and tested, did you not?
Can I refer to my
Sure.
notes? We did have a discussion regarding what additional items we wanted to start analyzing.
And that was in the morning of the 15th, correct?
Yes, sometime in the AM.
And it's your recollection that the socks were never mentioned?
Overruled.
I don't specifically remember whether they were mentioned. They were not one of the items chosen to continue work on.
Did you at any time on your own make an effort to review what items had actually been collected at Rockingham on the 13th?
From beginning to end, all the items? No, I don't believe so.
And you didn't have Fung's notes available to you, correct?
On the 13th, I don't believe they were even back at the laboratory by the time I left.
On the 14th?
We did look at a number of items, mainly at blood swatches and that type of thing in the gloves.
Where were the socks when you were looking at items? Do you have any idea?
I'd have to assume they were somewhere in the evidence processing room.
And you're assuming that because there's no record that shows where they were, correct?
Sustained.
Is there a record that shows where they were?
As mentioned earlier, no, other than what they say they took into the room and what was eventually booked.
Now, there were approximately 19 items, or excuse me, 21 items seized at Rockingham on the 13th. Who made the decision as to which items you guys would talk about on the 14th?
Beyond the scope of direct and also unintelligible.
Overruled.
On that date, I mean, it's very possible that the socks came up. It is not sticking in my mind because we didn't choose to do anything with it at the time. We were dealing with things that we knew at that point had blood on them, such as the stains in the gloves.
Did you know at that time that the search warrant that had been executed at Rockingham in the afternoon of the 13th, that the primary thing that was being searched for was bloody clothing?
Assumes facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
No personal knowledge.
Did you know that?
I've subsequently heard that. I didn't know that at the time.
Now, you had a meeting with Marcia Clark on the afternoon of the 15th, correct?
Referring again to my chronology of notes. My notes reflect work in progress. DDA Marcia Clark confirms desire to submit evidence to RFLP without further conventional work. Oh, that's correct. That was in Commander White's office. Yes, she was present.
Who else was present?
There was a large number of people in that room.
And the purpose for that meeting was to discuss what evidence was collected and what you should do with it, correct?
No, I don't believe we got into a lot of technical discussion at that point. I believe this involved some of the detectives and other people. I think we talked about the crime scene in general.
Were there other meetings between the 15th and the 20th, the day of the grand jury hearing, about the evidence that had been seized in this case?
I'll refer again, look through my notes, my chronology, and see if it reminds me of anything. I don't have any notations of any additional meetings that were held regarding specific discussions of the evidence.
Do you recall there being a lot of meetings around that time about this case?
I recall talking on the phone quite a bit with people about the case and meeting with criminalists and the like.
Now, on June 20th, you were at the grand jury waiting to testify from 7:45 in the morning till 10:15 in the morning, correct?
Not relevant.
Yes, I was.
And you were there with Dennis Fung and Detective Van Etter waiting, correct?
Along with Mr. Yamauchi and Detective Lang, yes.
Just look at his notes before.
Yes.
Did you have any discussion about what the evidence was in the case?
I don't particularly remember what we talked about.
Did the subject of the socks come up then?
I don't know.
By the way, Andrea Mazzola was not at the grand jury hearing, was she?
Sustained.
Did you participate in any discussions regarding the role that Andrea Mazzola would play in the grand jury hearing?
Sustained.
On the 21st at 11:15, you had a meeting with Michelle Kessler and Dennis Fung and Colin Yamauchi to discuss the evidence, did you not?
According to my chronology, yes, that's correct.
Did you discuss the socks at all?
Just by
Not relevant.
just by looking at this, I don't remember.
Now, when the property they started to book the property on the 16th. Did you follow that in any way to determine what items were being booked?
I don't believe they started to book it on the 16th. That was a date when the items and the reports, or the property report, was delivered to our evidence control unit.
That's the first date on the various computer systems used to track items, correct, and track packages
Yes,
for any item.
I believe so. I know that's true of the items that came out of the laboratory.
Are you aware of the socks even being photographed at SID after they were collected, before they were booked?
No, I'm not.
Now, was it June 29th was the first time that you looked at the socks?
It's the first time I remember seeing them, yes.
Now, you testified that blood is difficult to see on darker clothing such as the socks, correct?
Yes.
And you knew that at the time that you examined them, correct?
I know that in general it's tougher to see on black surfaces. That's correct.
And so when you examined those socks to see if there might be some evidence on them, did you look at them more carefully than if they'd been white?
Well, that wasn't the process that was going on there. I was not doing a scientific examination of those items at that point. We were trying to do an inventory of the swatches, the items that were there, and I made a general notation on that log or inventory as to what we'd be doing in the future with it.
Where was that done?
That was done in Ms. Kessler's office.
Do you have a high intensity light available to you to look at the socks there?
No,
How far away is one?
let's see, we would have one in the laboratory, so it's, I don't know, probably 50, 75 feet away.
Why'd you write down blood search on the notes of that meeting that day?
Because that was an indication of something we were planning on doing to those items in the future.
What'd you write down none obvious for?
It was an indication to me that we opened them up to take a look at them for the inventory, and there was no blood obvious on it.
So you did examine them at least.
Well, I looked at them, yes.
Did you take any pictures that day?
No.
Now, you testified that you took some cuttings from the socks on September 18th, correct?
You're referring again to my notes.
Yes.
That's correct.
Now, going back to the 29th, when you filled out these notes about blood search none obvious, who else was present when that meeting took place?
The inventory that we did at that time was myself, Ms. Kessler, and Colin Yamauchi.
Was there any discussion at that meeting about the potential significance of these socks?
No, I don't believe so.
Now, you did indicate that somebody should do a blood search. Is that what that indication means?
At some point, that was our intent, yes.
How had those socks been stored up until the 29th?
I would have to see if I can find some notes. I believe they were stored in a box in the freezer, but I'm not sure of that.
Do you have a record you can refer to?
Trying to figure out where it would be.
Sir, it's not your job to find the evidence for him. You ask him where he wants you to look. You don't you don't find the evidence for him.
Okay. With the information I have with me now, it's indicated that it was part of a very large box, which also contained the swatches and a number of items that were all stored frozen.
Now, are you aware that that evidence, that box of evidence, was examined by Susan Brockbank, who was a criminalist in your office, on the 21st of June?
I'm aware that she checked it out, yes.
And did she ever come to you and say, these socks are real important, we better look at them quickly? Anything like that?
I'll sit here and say our memory.
She did not say that, no, not to my knowledge.
When is the first time, to your knowledge, that anyone at SID took a picture of those socks after they were seized?
I'm not sure. I don't know if they were photographed when Mr. Yamaguchi first did a blood search on them or not.
When did he first do a blood search on them,
No personal knowledge.
if you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, and I wouldn't have those notes with me, I believe.
Do you have a rough idea what month it was?
Let's see, I did my,
No personal knowledge.
it would have to have been before I did my examination of on September 18th. So it would have been in either August or September.
Should you take pictures of an item of evidence when you're going to alter it in some fashion, both before and after you do the alteration?
That is a good practice, yes.
When you took cuttings of those socks on the 18th, did you have any pictures taken before you altered them?
No, I did not.
Did you have any pictures taken after you altered them?
Not at that time, no.
The pictures that were used here, I believe, yesterday for you to identify, when were they taken?
They were taken at some later date at one of the other laboratories that worked on these items.
All right, Mr. Blakey, which item are you referring to?
It was the picture of the socks.
A and B.
14A.
Before he talks, I can already promise you guys that his next line of questioning right here is going to be really annoying. Because Chuck just told him what to say.
One of the policies that is in place in your lab is that items, when they come into the lab, are photographed so that you can preserve their appearance and their condition when you first get them. Isn't that correct?
No, it is not.
Do you think that's a good practice?
The items are photographed in the scene. It shows their appearance at the time they're collected. We do not then photograph them again as soon as they come into the laboratory.
Why not?
Well, it's a combination of it is not necessary, and we deal with large quantities of evidence. It's a matter of practicality.
Now, representatives of the defense have been at the lab a number of times, correct?
Yes, they have.
And every time someone from the defense has been at the lab to look at an item, it has been extensively photographed by your photographer, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Both before we look at it and after we look at it, correct?
Yes.
When you conduct examinations of evidence yourself, when we aren't there, do you photograph what you do?
Not every item, no.
How do you decide which ones to document by photographing and which ones not to?
Historically, as a rule, very few items are photographed within the laboratory on a regular basis. At this point, well, it still is that many times the evidence items are not photographed.
Can blood on clothing change over time in terms of your ability to extract information from it?
Yes, particularly depending on its storage conditions.
When you decided to do a blood search on the 29th, did you give anybody any instructions that we should do this fairly quickly?
No?
Can you estimate the number of months it was from the time those socks were collected until someone looked at them carefully?
It would have been 2 to 3 months, something like that.
This meeting on the 29th, where you evaluated the evidence for purposes of possible testing, your notes indicate that the various items that were examined very carefully, including the measurements of each individual swatch, weren't they?
Referring to my copy of those notes, we have measurements, yes, indicated under the quantity area on each of the swatches.
Is it accurate that this was not just a brief meeting in passing, that this was a meeting that you took some time to carefully review these items?
It took quite a while to do this inventory, yes.
Are you aware of Andrea Mazzola's testimony in August to the effect that she wrote her initials on the coin envelopes of the blood drops that she collected?
Sustained.
No, that
Sustained.
Oh, excuse me.
Would it be of concern to you as a supervisor of criminalists if you reviewed evidence items that, to your knowledge, had originally been signed by a criminalist and those items were not signed when you look at them?
Argumentative.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Do you have any method that you use of examining items of evidence at a particular time to see whether it's the same evidence that was collected originally?
We do not have a ongoing formal policy of checking the item that's being examined for, say serology or trace or whatever against an original proper report or something.
Would it be of concern to you if items that you examined, you expected to have initials on them by the person collecting them and they weren't there?
Argumentative.
Overall.
Are you saying that if I received a packing material that had no initials on it?
No, that had initials from somebody other than the person you thought had collected it.
No, it's argumentative.
Sustained. As phrased. On the 29th, when you were going through all these items, did you notice anything unusual about the initials on these packing items?
No, I did not.
Hypothetically, if a criminalist had put their initials on an envelope that contained an item of evidence that that criminalist collected, and you later examined that envelope and there was no signature on it or someone else's signature on it, would that cause you concern?
Improper hypothetical.
Sustained.
Not relevant. Argumentative. Can we approach?
No. Sustained.
Mr. Madison, I want to ask you some questions about the Bronco. The Bronco was impounded on the 13th, correct?
I was not involved in any of that. I've heard that.
Were you involved at all in any examinations done on the Bronco during the course of the time it was impounded?
No, I was not.
Did you make any effort to follow what the people that worked under you were doing with respect to examining the Bronco?
To some extent, yes, not moment by moment.
But you were reviewing with them the various searches that they did of the Bronco, correct?
I would hear, what items were collected, that type of thing, yes.
Did you review any of those notes as they were prepared?
No, I did not.
Is there some reason why you did not review those notes?
Well, as was previously mentioned, it's still consistent with the notes from both Bundy and Rockingham. I had not received them prior to their being copied and distributed.
To your knowledge, did anybody review them before they were copied and distributed?
Not to my knowledge, no.
When would these reports be copied and distributed? How long after a particular search took place in general?
Are we talking about in relation to this case or in
This
other
case.
cases?
This case.
Well, as a rule, given some of the conditions, we were trying to get things turned over as soon as possible. I don't know, it depends. I mean, sometimes we were not receiving some of this information until significantly later time.
At some point, did you become aware of the possible significance of 4 small stains on the door or the door sill of the Bronco?
For personal knowledge, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
The first time I specifically remember hearing about those was in testimony on this case.
So you're not aware at any time prior to that that there was any concern about whether those stains existed or not?
Sustained.
When you say the testimony in this case is where you became aware of that, was that Detective Furman's testimony at the preliminary hearing?
No, it was Mr. Fung's during the trial.
You had no awareness of Mr. Fung being sent out by the district attorney's office to look at that Bronco on July 6th?
Overruled.
Not as I recall, no.
Were you still supervising him at that time?
Sustained.
Were you still in charge of managing the items in this case at that time?
It was one of my tasks to be involved in tracking the items, yes.
Would you agree that it is proper procedure for a criminalist collecting an individual stain to collect the whole stain if possible?
If possible, if it's a very, very large stain, there's no reason to. But if it's small stain, I'd expect it to be collected.
If it's a manageable size stain, they should collect all of it, correct?
As much as possible, yes.
And the reason for that is you can't tell from looking at a stain how good the blood or whatever it happens to be is going to be in terms of your being able to extract any information from it.
That's correct.
So you try to get as much as you can, correct?
That's correct.
And your people understand that.
I believe so, yes.
Now, when Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola searched the Bronco on the 14th, did you discuss after they were done with that anything about that search?
I may have gotten a general overview of what was collected, but not in detail, no.
Did Dennis Fung ever tell you after the 14th that he had left a lot of blood in the Bronco?
Calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you become aware at any time? Let me rephrase that. Did you have any awareness at all after the 14th that blood had, let me rephrase that. When did you first become aware that there was more blood in the Bronco after the 14th?
Was when I saw the console when it was in the serology laboratory.
So nobody had informed you of that fact prior to that time?
It is possible that it was mentioned to me. I believe the search and the collection of the items from the Bronco was on August 26th. It is possible at that point that Ms. Kessler mentioned to me that there was blood present. I did not see any of these items, though, until they were back into the laboratory.
Now, you indicated earlier that it is your practice, or the lab's practice, for continuity to have the same criminalist stay with the case throughout the case if possible.
If possible, we've tried to.
Now, when did Andrea Mazzola stop working on this case in terms of doing searches?
I believe it was following the Bronco search in the shed, but I'm not quite sure.
On the 14th?
I believe so.
Was she available after the 14th?
She was working, yes.
Was she available to do further searches on this case?
I don't know. She works not in one of my units. I wouldn't know at any particular date and time if she was available.
For continuity of the case, isn't it your practice that she should have stayed on the case?
Asked and answered.
In all of this it leaves us with the ability to make changes. In other words, in a normal case where we have a crime scene search and then maybe a follow-up scene of one type and that's it, we try and maintain this continuity. However, given the extent and the complexity of this case, at one point we decided to start involving other people besides the original two.
And was she taken off because of her lack of experience?
Since that's not
Sustained.
Why did she not do any further searches in this case?
Because she had duties in her own unit and she was done at that point with this particular situation. And we were bringing other people in that potentially would be being involved with the analysis of the evidence farther down the road.
Now, the search that was done on August 26th, that was done by Michelle Kessler, the head of the lab, correct?
She was one of the parties there, yes.
And the media was invited to that search, correct?
I believe there was a photographer.
Dennis Fung wasn't invited to that search, was he?
I don't know if he's invited or not.
A photographer from Life magazine was invited to that search, correct?
Not relevant.
Sustained.
What level of security, to your knowledge, had been provided for the Bronco during the period of time from June 14th until August 24th?
No foundation, personal knowledge.
Sustained. First question.
Do you have any personal knowledge about what security there was surrounding the Bronco between June 14th and August 24th or 26th when that search took place?
No specific knowledge, no.
Now, is there a policy with respect to vehicles in terms of processing them quickly because they are mobile to a certain extent?
I don't know if the reason to process them quickly has to do with any sort of mobility. It would be imperative or important to process any sort of scene quickly, of which a vehicle is one, to attempt to recover any biological evidence that may degrade.
Now, vehicles are not, stored in the evidence control unit, are they?
No, they are not.
They're stored at a tow yard, aren't they?
There are two different ways that a vehicle can be brought into the possession of our department and stored. One of them is we have a facility which is under the control of the police department, located behind Parker Center, where we have temporary storage of vehicles, and it's an area where they can be searched. At some point, then they're transferred out to a official police garage, or in some cases, they go directly to the police garage.
Directly to, I'm sorry?
The police garage, an official tow yard.
This Bronco was moved to a tow yard, was it not?
No foundation, personal knowledge. beyond the
Sustained.
scope.
When it was searched on the 26th, where was that?
I don't know about on the 26th. I can make an assumption, but I don't know for a fact.
Is it important to process a vehicle as a general rule before it is put in a place where there is ready access by civilians?
Beyond the scope.
Well, it's important to perform, excuse me, it's important to perform any search if you can before it has the potential of access by anybody that doesn't belong there.
What steps did you take to see that the Bronco was thoroughly and carefully searched before it went to a tow yard, if any?
Beyond the scope.
My understanding was that a search of that vehicle had been performed, I believe it was on the 14th or the 15th of June. And at that point, that we were done with it.
So your impression was that everything of evidentiary value had been collected.
I trusted the criminals we had at the scene to make that decision, yes.
And that's the way they should have done it, correct?
Argument is
Sustained.
Is that the proper way to do it?
It is what the proper way to do it.
When you go to search the vehicle, to do it all at one time if you can, be thorough, get all the evidence that's there, so you don't have to go back.
Of course, the best thing to do is get it all the first time.
And it's not desirable to have to go back a second time to a vehicle or any place to collect evidence that you missed the first time, is it?
it's desirable.
If you can avoid it, sure, it'd be nice to get everything the first time every time. Occasionally, though, we do have to do repeats.
I'd like to show the witness a form.
All right, Mr. Blazier.
Mr. Madison, do you know what the term special care means with respect to a vehicle that's been seized?
Not that specific term, no.
Are you aware of any procedure that LAPD has in effect to provide special care to vehicles that have been seized?
No foundation for this witness's knowledge.
Well, I do, excuse me. I do know that the garages that the police department use to store vehicles have areas that are designated as print sheds or what are supposed to be more secure areas than just their lot, so that they're maintained until our arrival for searching.
Let me show you this form again, ask if you're familiar with it. Sure, you get a chance to look at it.
I would like to show the witness the form. It's nothing he created or his laboratory.
Do you recognize the form?
I recognize it by its title as being a Los Angeles Police Department vehicle investigation form. I've never utilized one of these.
All right, do you recognize the information? Are you familiar with the information that's on that form?
Information regarding the form itself or what is filled out?
The information that's contained on the form that's been filled in. Are you familiar with that information?
Oh, I recognize notations regarding this case and the,
Thank you. Mr. Blazer.
Are you familiar with the procedure that the Los Angeles Police Department uses to release a vehicle that they're done with?
no, I am not.
I have a couple of pictures I would like to have marked.
All right, 1128 and 1129.
Actually, I have 49.
1130 and 1131.
Sorry, what's that first number, Your Honor?
1128.
Those marked A.
1128, 1129, 1130, and 1131. And generally, what are these, Mr. Blazer?
These are pictures of reference blood vials for both victims. Mr. Mattson, let me show you first 1128 and ask if you recognize the blood vial in that picture.
Yes, I do.
And let me show you 1129, see if you recognize that.
I believe it's the same one.
And what are those pictures of?
Of item number 60, which I believe is Mr. Goldman's reference blood.
I'll show you 1130 and 1131. You recognize those, and what are they?
These are both photographs of two sides of item number 59, which I believe is Ms. Brown's reference samples.
Show you on the hemogram. Show first 1128, 1129. Mr. Matheson, do those two pictures appear to be accurate pictures of the reference blood vial for Ronald Goldman?
Yes, I do.
Now, reference blood from victims is taken by the coroner, correct?
That's correct.
That's not a function of SID, correct?
That's correct.
And after it's taken at the coroner's office, it's transported in some fashion to SID, correct?
Yes.
Now, you will agree that there is blood on the outside of that vial.
Yes, there is.
There is a substantial amount of blood on the outside, isn't there?
Yes.
Do you know how that blood got on the outside of that vial?
Not specifically, no.
When blood gets outside of a vial, would you agree that it is more likely that it can contaminate things?
Something comes in contact with it, sure.
And it's like a hand would come in contact with it. You could have some transfer of a small amount of blood from the vial to the hand, correct?
That's correct. That's why I'd wear gloves if I was to handle this item.
A small amount of blood that you might not even be able to see,
Possible, yes.
but there would be enough blood to test and get a result on using DNA testing, correct? Are you aware of how much? Well, let me withdraw that. Let's take a look at 1130 and 1131. 1130 and 1131, those are pictures of Nicole Brown Simpson's reference file, correct?
Yes, it is.
And that would have been taken from originally taken from the coroner's office, correct?
Yes.
Would you agree that there is blood also on the outside of that vial?
Yes.
Do you know how the blood got on the outside of the vial?
No, I have no personal knowledge of that.
When you use these vials to perform tests on them, do you pour blood out, or do you use something like a pipetter to take blood out?
You take it out with a pipetter.
You don't take it out in a fashion that would cause it to spill on the outside of the container, do you?
Try not to.
And to your knowledge, does the coroner follow the same procedure? If they need to take a withdrawal, they use pipetters as well.
I don't know the procedures that they use.
When are criminalists supposed to write reports of testing that they do with respect to when they do the test?
The final report?
Any report or notes?
Well, the notes, some of them are going to be completed as the work is done. At some point after that, upon the completion of the analysis, the notes or the summary is going to be brought together to make the report.
Is it acceptable procedure within your department for a criminalist to perform a test in July and not make any record of it until October?
That would be unique.
That would be bad, wouldn't it?
It's the same phrase question.
That would be unacceptable, wouldn't it?
I would want to know why that much time passed.
Now, you're aware that that happened with respect to a test that Dennis Fung did on the Bronco on July 6th, are you not?
Oh, well.
It's also the
Oh, well.
I know that there was some information that was provided in a report at a later date. I don't specifically know which one you're talking about right now.
What effort did you make to find out about it, like you said you would?
since acting on evidence, also
Okay.
beyond the scope.
You mean to find out why it had taken that long?
Yes.
Well, if I received a report after that amount of time, I would just ask them why it took so long to get the information down on a report.
What'd you find out when you made that inquiry this time?
Since acting on evidence,
If you made an inquiry.
well, it's an improper hypothetical.
Not a hypothetical. Did you make such an inquiry with regard to this report?
I'm not specifically remembering which report we're talking about. So
So let me make it more specific. A pheno test on purported or alleged stains on the bottom of the Bronco door.
would it be possible for me to review that report?
You can find that later.
Is it proper procedure when you do a pheno test on something such as a car to photograph it before you do the test?
Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. As an explanation for that is if I see a stain and I don't know whether or not it is blood, I normally will not photograph it first because if it's not blood, if it's not something of interest, then it won't be collected. And thus it's not evidence. There's no reason to have a photograph of it. If it is something that I know I'm going to be collecting, there's a very good chance I'd have a photograph before performing the pheno test on it.
What if it's something that you suspect you're going to be collecting, and that's why you run a test on it to begin with?
Improper hypothetical.
Oh, well.
Shouldn't you take a picture first?
It's not relevant.
Oh, well.
If it's something that I suspect that I'm going to be collecting, I mean, because we do a lot of spot tests out in the field. If I found a blood stain or a stain that I suspected of being blood, and many times you can tell just by looking that it's probably blood. Again, it depends on the situation. If it is a very small sample and I was going to be consuming a large portion, first off, I wouldn't want to necessarily run a pheno, but if I felt it was necessary, it would be a good idea to document it first. If it's a larger sample,
I'll be right back, guys. Be good. Keep going. I'll be right back.
larger item, and by removing a small portion and running my test is not going to make any significant alteration to it, then no, I wouldn't necessarily do it. I might.
Well, let me give you a more detailed hypothetical. Suppose a prosecutor sends you out to look at something because a detective said, there's blood there. Go out, look at it, see if it's blood, come back and tell me. Would you document that by way of taking a photograph?
Improper hypothetical.
It's the same.
Is it proper to do a phenotest on an item and take a picture after you do the test while the stain is still moist from the phenotest?
I don't see any problem with it being moist from the test. As I mentioned before, I laid out the reasons or the times where I would have a photograph taken, and that is if I ran, let's say I had a stain that I didn't know whether or not it was blood, and I ran my phenotest on it and turned out that it was blood and had it photographed at that point, I wouldn't worry whether or not that it was damp from the
Other jurors, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Mr. Matheson, would you resume the witness stand, please? Mr. Blazer, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Matheson, I want to ask you some questions about contamination. Now, do you agree that if there are problems with the collection, packaging, or handling or analysis of evidence, that contamination can result?
Creates problems.
if the items are handled in such a way that allows them to come in contact with things that they shouldn't, with other pieces of evidence, or with things in the environment that they shouldn't, yes, that can create contamination.
Now, contamination, that term is not, well, tell me what it means to you in the context of serological testing and DNA testing.
It would deal with having something introduced into the sample that doesn't belong there, that is not part of the sample as it was deposited.
Now, no one has ever suggested to you, have they, that a clean blood sample from a particular person can change type because it gets dirt on it, for instance? Has that ever been suggested to you?
That it can change types?
Yes.
No.
The concept of contamination involves one biological material getting in contact with another, correct? That's one use of the term.
That would be one use, yes.
And the notion of contamination affecting test results deals with one biological sample from one source getting mixed or replaced by a biological material from another sample, correct?
I don't believe it's just limited to being mixed or come in contact with other biological materials. You can get contamination of non-biologicals too.
But a non-biological item is not going to change the blood type, for instance, of a blood sample, correct?
That's correct. Neither will a biological contaminant.
Well, are you saying that there are no circumstances where one biological material getting in with another can change the type of that material?
It will not change the type of the material, no.
How about the test results when you test it?
Depending on the degree of contamination, yes, it could change the results of the analysis.
Now, is it important to have procedures in place to prevent contamination in the collection, packaging, handling, and analysis of evidence?
Yes, it is.
Do you feel that protections, additional protections, are necessary when you are considering doing DNA testing, such as PCR amplification?
I believe the only additional controls or process that would be necessary is that the person be aware that it takes a very small amount of sample to give a PCR result.
When you say a very small amount of sample, how much are you talking about?
Well, I don't know, as far as exact size or weight, I believe it's something you'd have to be able to see when it comes to forensic analysis.
Is it your understanding that only biological material that you can see can be typed using PCR?
I'd say when we're talking about blood samples, I am not aware of the fact that a blood sample that is invisible to the eye would be typable by the procedures used in forensics.
How large a sample, in your experience, do you need to type using PCR?
I've never performed tests or anything on, to determine the quantity.
During the years that you spent arranging and helping to set up your lab, you never learned anything about the quantities of DNA necessary for conducting tests?
Well, I oversaw the process. I wasn't actually in there hands-on working with them, establishing the procedures. I have heard over the years figures given as far as how much DNA is necessary to get a result. Off the top of my head right now, I don't know what those are.
Do you know what a nanogram is?
Yes.
How much is a nanogram?
I believe that's a billionth of a gram.
And a gram is about 1/500th of a pound, approximately 1/454th of a pound, correct?
I don't specifically know the number, but it'd be about right.
So if you took a pound of something and cut it up into 454 pieces and then took 1/100000th of one of those pieces, that's an anagram, correct?
A very small amount, yes.
And what amounts, what's your understanding in terms of the minimum amounts of DNA required to do typing?
Well, my understanding in general is that in the low nanogram level is typable.
1 or 2 nanograms, correct?
Of DNA, yes.
Is it your understanding that you can see 1 or 2 nanograms of DNA in a blood sample,
Not the DNA itself, no.
but that a sample which would contain only 1 or 2 nanograms you can see?
I believe so, yes.
How big is it?
It's a very small spot.
About the size of, I'm sorry,
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
about the size of a pinhead?
It depends on the pin, I suppose, but yeah, a very small point or tip of it.
Far smaller than you need to do any kind of conventional serological testing, correct?
Definitely.
And can you tell me, in your lab, what procedures with respect to collection, packaging, handling, and analysis of evidence have changed since you started doing DNA testing?
The only thing that has changed has been we've tried to make the people aware that it's a very sensitive test. The actual procedures themselves have not changed in that we still just use clean tools. We wipe them off with a dampened tissue or something like that and avoid contact with other items.
Have you done any studies on whether the procedures that you use to collect serological samples for conventional serology are adequate to guard against contamination when you're considering doing DNA testing?
Did you say any studies?
Yes.
No studies specifically for that.
Your Honor, I'd like to show one of the charts that we had talked about before.
Proceed.
No. 1132.
1132. Mr. Matheson, can you see that chart from where you're sitting?
Yes.
Now, that chart indicates 20 nanograms is approximately the size of a pinhead. Is that your understanding, or is your understanding that 2 nanograms is the size of a pinhead?
Well, I'm not talking, specifically about quantities, and there you're referring to, I'm assuming, amount of DNA. 2 nanograms or even 20 nanograms of DNA would not be visible.
Did you say earlier, though, that you thought 2 nanograms in a blood sample would be visible?
Oh, as far as in a blood sample,
Mhm.
I believe that my understanding is that using the forensic techniques, the amount of DNA found in a blood stain or something that you would be able to see it. It'd be very, very small, but you should be able to see it.
Now,
Mr. Glacier, do you want to move that exhibit down towards the end of the box so the other jurors can appreciate the comparison? Slippery, isn't it? All right, why don't you give the jurors the opportunity to examine that? All right, thank you, Mr. Douglas. Mrs. Robertson, 1122? 1132.
Mr. Matheson, how much is a microliter of blood?
A millionth of a liter.
And you know how many nanograms of DNA there are in a microliter or a millionth of a liter?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Now, the technique that is used in your lab called PCR, I'm not going to ask you a lot of detailed questions about this, but basically involves taking a very small amount of DNA and multiplying it into a bigger amount. Is that an accurate, rough description?
A specific portion of that DNA, yes.
And by a specific portion, you mean a particular section of the DNA chain.
That's correct.
And just like the enzyme systems that you were talking about yesterday have genotypes, DNA has genotypes as well, correct?
In the systems we're looking at, yes.
And it's the same kind of structure in the sense that we inherit half of our DNA from our dad and half from our mom, correct?
That's correct.
And it's the same kind of inheritance process that's going on that accounts for two different what are called alleles, one from each parent, correct?
True.
So, for instance, in the EAP system that we were talking about yesterday, when you describe somebody as being a BA, that tells you that they got the B allele from one parent and the A allele from another parent, correct?
That's correct.
And in the PCR system, the genotypes work the same way in the sense that there are two numbers associated with any particular genotype, one which came from your father, one which came from your mother.
That's correct.
Now, in the EAP system that we were talking about yesterday, when you say that somebody is a B, what that really means is that they got a B from both parents. So it's in essence a BB, correct?
True.
Now, the DNA in a person's saliva, for instance, is the same as the DNA in their blood. You're aware of that, are you not?
Yes, I am.
Every cell in the body that has a nucleus has DNA in it, correct?
That's correct.
And it's all the same for one particular person.
Yes.
And the tests that are done, PCR tests that you do in your lab, are incapable of telling the difference between DNA, which comes from saliva, as opposed to DNA, which comes from blood.
I think at this point, it's going beyond the scope of the direct.
Sustained.
Now, Mr. Goldberg asked you questions yesterday about DNA floating in the air. And I believe you said you weren't aware of that happening. Is that correct?
Well, misstates the testimony.
We were talking about clouds of DNA floating around,
Yeah.
I think. In general, yes, that's correct.
What happens when you sneeze in terms of DNA? Do you know?
Yeah, what you are, if you don't cover your mouth open and you sneeze just in the open air, some of what comes out is going to be saliva and other constituents, and that is going to have cells in it, which is going to have your DNA in it.
And if you're standing over something like a podium and dead skin cells fall off your skin, that has DNA in it as well, does it not?
This is still beyond the scope of the direct.
I think we're still on the issue of contamination here.
Correct.
I don't know to what extent dead skin cells have DNA in it.
Do you know what a wipe test is?
I know it's used in a couple of different contexts.
What's the context that you know with respect to DNA testing?
What I've heard of on that is to wipe down the counters of a work area, then extract that wiping and amplify it and analyze it for DNA types.
And wiping down a counter which may not have anything apparent to the eye on it might have DNA in it, correct?
This is beyond the scope of the direct.
We're getting there. We're real close here because this is specific to PCR testing. And this person was not presented as a PCR witness for the prosecution. I think you've established what the issue is here. Proceed.
Can saliva from one person, if it gets in a blood stain on the ground, result in the first person's DNA showing up in the blood stain?
If it's a sufficient quantity, yes.
And if the blood stain on the ground has deteriorated because of humidity or environmental conditions to the point where there is not a lot of DNA in it and is contaminated by saliva from perspiration, for instance, from somebody leaning over it, that person's DNA type would show up or could show up rather than the actual type in the blood, correct?
If, as you say, the original blood stain had deteriorated completely to the point where you could not get any results from that, that's correct.
And that's called contamination, isn't it?
That's a type of contamination, yes.
And the type of tests that you do are incapable of telling the difference, in my hypothetical, between DNA that comes from perspiration of the person standing up as opposed to the blood of the person who deposited it.
Beyond the scope.
We'll allow this one issue, but I think we need to move on. Is that true?
The
Simpson?
the DNA test cannot tell the difference. That's correct.
Let's proceed.
You know, I'd like to show the other chart we have.
All right, 11:33.
Now, Mr. Matheson, the amplification process that you go through when you do a PCR test involves taking a small amount of DNA and doubling it in what are called cycles, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And typically that's done 32 times, correct?
That's the protocol in forensics. Yes.
And that chart depicts that starting out with a very small amount and doubling it 30 times leads to a very large amount, correct?
Doubling at 32. Yes, it's an extremely large number.
Well, at this point, I don't think there's any foundation laid for the chart. Subject to it.
This is chart 1134. And Mr. Matheson, is it accurate that with PCR amplification that we've been talking about in general terms, that if you have DNA from more than one source, the amplification process amplifies both sources?
That's
Correct.
that's correct.
There's no way to separate one source from the other,
This is beyond the scope of the direct.
correct?
That's correct.
And just like my example with saliva contaminating a blood stain, you can have flakes of blood from one stain. If it gets on a second stain, that can also contaminate the second stain as well, correct?
If it's insufficient quantity, yes.
And if it's insufficient quantity to amplify, if the second stain is amplified, the component that came from the first stain gets amplified as well, correct?
What gets amplified as well, but it depends on, there is a point at which in the dilution, or if you have significantly more of one type of DNA than another, the one that exists in the larger quantity may be the only one that you see.
Mr. Matheson, with respect to your last answer, would you agree that the manner in which, in terms of final quantities of DNA that you get with the amplification I described is really beyond your area of expertise?
It's getting there, yes.
Okay. Now, you have testified, I believe, that you do not consider it necessary when dealing with biological stains that might be subjected to DNA testing to change gloves between each item that you handle. Is that correct?
Not just as a matter of rule to automatically change it between each item. That's correct.
Do you remember, actually, it's the same visit we were talking about before on August 26th to your lab by various representatives of the defense? That's probably the wrong date. Do you remember the date when Mr. Regal, Mr. Neufeld, Dr. Lee, and several others came to the lab for a tour that you talked about before?
Not off the top of my head, no.
You recall a meeting with just Mr. Regal and Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And at that particular meeting, they examined some items of evidence, did they not?
There were a number of items that were examined in the serology lab, I believe.
Approximately how many items were examined? Roughly.
I don't recall. For that, I'd like to take a look at if I have any notes on that date.
Sure.
Do we have any idea when that date was?
I thought it was in August, maybe around the 19th.
Oh,
Well, counsel, let's move on. Rather than have the witness search through his notes, let's focus on what we need to go with.
There were more than 15 items examined, right there.
yes.
You changed your gloves between every single item, didn't you?
I don't remember. I might have.
And you changed the paper on the table between every single item, didn't you?
Like I said, I might have. I don't specifically remember doing it.
Is that the procedure that you use when representatives of the defense are there?
Oh, well,
That was, if in fact I did that, and it's entirely possible that I did, yes, we were being hypersensitive at that point to the handling of all these items.
But when you're doing handling of items in the privacy of your lab with no defense people watching you, you don't follow that procedure, correct?
I do not change my gloves after every time or change the paper every time, unless there's some indication, such as the item coming in contact with the paper, or there being a chance of transferring the evidence.
So it's only if you become aware that you may have touched something that it becomes important to change gloves.
There's a chance that you are going to cross-contaminate. Yes, at that point you'd want to change gloves.
Now, your laboratory has an extensive division order in the field manual that we've been talking about, and I'll refer you to page 125 if you still have that there. You have an extensive procedure that's to be followed with respect to handling possibly contaminated evidence in the lab, correct?
This is vague now as to how he's using contamination sustained.
Let me-
it's hearsay at this point as well.
Material that may contain infectious diseases.
We do have a division order relating to that, yes.
And the reason why you want to be careful about that is because you may ingest something of an infectious nature from some evidence that you might have collected, correct?
This is irrelevant. It's beyond the scope.
Oh, well,
All of the controls are in place to prevent the operator of coming in contact with the blood. That's correct.
Because if you come into contact with it, it may get into your system and make you sick.
The potential exists, yes.
The same kind of transfer can happen with DNA from biological samples, can it not? With the exception it doesn't make you sick.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
The same kind of transfer in terms of getting something on your skin or on your glove or on your clothing can happen with respect to small particles of DNA or biological material that contains DNA, as with infectious disease materials, correct?
Still vague and unintelligible.
do you understand the question?
I believe so. You can if what you're saying is, can these items still come in contact with your clothing or whatever, not make you sick? And yes.
And if they come into contact with your clothing and your gloves, they can then come in contact with other items that you might touch, for instance, other evidence items.
Unintelligible.
Oh, well, do you understand the question?
I think so. The whole idea of wearing these things is if something happens to get on you, it doesn't come in direct contact with your skin. If you're wearing gloves, then what would have come in contact with your skin has now come in contact with your gloves. And then if you use those gloves to handle something else, the potential exists for transferring it, yes.
Now, when you are handling biological materials that may be subject to DNA testing, you do not use the same precautions that you use when handling materials that you may suspect have the potential of having infectious diseases, do you?
Well, we're still wearing gloves, and we are not going with those gloves in areas where we shouldn't. If there's something on them, then we change them and put on clean ones.
So you're saying you do follow the same procedures?
I'm not sure exactly which same procedures you're talking about.
After you handle biological material in the evidence processing room, on that table that we saw in the picture, do you clean the table?
It's brushed off, yes.
With what?
Well, we have, actually, beyond that, the items are wiped down with a solution of water and bleach.
After every item?
No, I don't believe so, no.
And the purpose for doing that is what?
That if there's any residue left on that counter, when you're done with your work, you clean it off, and it's not left there for somebody unsuspecting to come along and become contaminated by it.
Now, is your procedure that you only do that when you can see something there?
No, it is not.
When do you do that?
When you're done working.
So you do not do that between individual items of evidence, do you?
No, we do not.
Do you recognize that you can get a contamination with your evidence materials from things that you can't see?
I still feel that, particularly if you're dealing with, say, a bloodstained swatch or something like that, that if the quantity of material that is going to get on it is so small that you cannot see it, then it is not likely to cause any contamination to that item.
Have you studied the procedures used by any other laboratories that do DNA analysis with respect to the issue of cleaning tables after each item is examined?
No, I have not.
Have you examined any other laboratories that do DNA testing with respect to whether you should change gloves after handling each item?
No, I have not.
Have you studied any other laboratories that do DNA analysis with respect to how you should clean your tools between handling samples?
No, I have not.
Andrea Mazzola testified that she uses, on occasion, serrated tweezers. Is that accurate?
No, that's testimony.
I did hear that, and I believe she said that both serrated and non-serrated were available.
Okay.
Thank you.
Serrated tweezers are tweezers that have little grooves in the end of them so that it's easier to hold the swatch, correct?
Serrated tweezers are not to be used when you're doing blood collection.
Well, did you understand her testimony to be that she does?
That was his testimony, Your Honor.
No, I did not.
What did you understand the distinction she made between when she uses serrated tweezers and when she doesn't?
The way I heard it, because I was concerned, was that they were available in the kit, but I'd never heard her saying that she used serrated tweezers for blood collection. That would be inappropriate.
You have anything in writing anywhere to tell your people that the serrated tweezers in the kit should not be used to collect biological evidence?
Not that I know of, no.
Do you know whether that's been communicated to the people that work for you in any fashion at all?
I believe it has, yes.
When?
Can't specifically say it. I pass it on to the people who I am teaching out in the field, and it may be, though I'm not sure, part of training that they've received as far as biological evidence.
Is it your understanding that wiping off a pair of tweezers with a chem wipe, which I think is the procedure you described, correct?
With a dampened one, yes.
With a dampened chem wipe, is sufficient to clean off potential biological material that may have been left over from earlier evidence?
Yes, I do.
Have you done any studies to demonstrate whether that is an effective way to completely remove DNA from earlier samples?
In a way, we're constantly doing a study on that because it's the same process used for our controls.
Have you done any particular studies designed to just find out whether that works the way you think it does?
No,
Are you aware of any scientific articles that say that that's all you need to do to clean your tools between handling items?
no, I do not.
Have you evaluated any other DNA laboratory anywhere with respect to that issue to find out what procedure is used to clean the tools that's used to handle the evidence?
I have not specifically, no.
Now, I think you testified on direct. You were asked some questions about what are hot topics and what aren't hot topics. You remember that line of questioning?
Do you recollect anything like that?
Hot topics and not hot topics? No.
You're being asked some questions about collection of evidence. In terms of whether particular topics were big topics in the forensic community or not.
Yes, now I do.
And is it your opinion or your understanding that the topic of the collection of evidence for purposes of DNA testing is not a controversial topic in the forensic community?
States the testimony.
I believe we were specifically talking about the part that references the actual swatching and picking up. There has not been an awful lot of discussion that I have heard regarding whether you should use water or alcohol or whatever to clean your tweezers. I mean, it's just not a big thing that's been discussed.
Do you recall an occasion, I believe it was January 18th, when I visited the lab with Mr. Scheck and a few other people?
You were there a couple of times.
You remember the time that we examined the evidence kits that you used?
Yes, I do.
And that was done in the presence of Michelle Kessler, was it not?
I believe she was there, yes.
And we looked at, I believe there were two different evidence kits that were put on the table and everything was taken out to look at. You call that?
Well, they weren't two different kits. They kind of work together. It isn't like you'd use one or the other one to take out to the scene. In a situation like that, you'd grab both of those particular kits.
You remember how, and there were extensive pictures taken of all that, weren't there?
Yes, there were.
You remember how we found a scalpel that had been in a sealed container that actually was left open and put back in the kit?
Sustained.
Do you carry scalpels in your evidence kit?
Sustained.
Do you use scalpels in the collection of biological evidence?
If you're going to use a scrape method rather than the swatch that we've described, yes, you do occasionally use a scalpel.
And don't some of your people also use scalpels to cut swatches?
Not relevant. Only.
Yes,
Do you use sterile scalpels?
yes,
And sterile scalpels come in sealed containers that when you want to use them, you open it up, you use it, and you throw it away, correct?
that's correct.
Would it be inappropriate to take one of those scalpels and put it back in an evidence kit after it's been used?
Improper hypothetical, not relevant.
Sustained.
Didn't we find a used scalpel in one of those evidence kits?
Sustained.
Do you recall you showing us the swabs that are used at crime scenes?
I believe there were swabs in there. I don't specifically remember showing them.
And the bags of swabs, they come sealed with a large number per bag, correct?
Yes,
And when you open those bags, you use whatever you need to use, and then you throw them away, don't you?
on the bags, normally we use them up. Yes,
When you don't use them up, do you put the unused swabs that have already been opened back in the evidence kit?
they are still in their original packaging, but yes, they're returned to the kit.
Do you remember when we were there, Michelle Kessler, starting to put those back in the kit and you grabbed them and threw them away?
Sustained.
Approach.
Proceed.
Witness a document.
What is it?
These are the guidelines for collection and preservation of DNA evidence by the FBI. Manson, let me show you a document, guidelines for the collection and preservation of DNA evidence by the FBI. Are you familiar with that?
I have seen this. Yes,
You follow that in your lab?
I don't remember all the specifics in it, or if we follow each and every instance that's in here.
Now, this is a document that's put out by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United States Department of Justice, correct?
Yes,
And they have a rather extensive DNA program, do they not?
yes, they do.
And these are guidelines that they put out for the purpose of giving guidance to crime laboratories like yourself on the proper way to collect and preserve evidence if you're going to do DNA testing, correct?
There's only one proper way.
Overruled.
It gives guidelines on the appropriate ways to do it. It's my understanding.
And do you accept the FBI as an authority on the proper way to collect evidence for preservation? I'm sorry, collect and preserve evidence for DNA testing.
I believe that they are an organization that knows quite a bit about all that, and I would take into account what they have to say.
And you've reviewed that document before, have you not?
I have read it. I don't remember specifics of it right now.
Do you believe that you should videotape a crime scene to show the relative position of all pieces of evidence?
Wait, that's not what it says in this document, and I object to answering from it.
Objection, speaking objection.
And allowed commentary over here as well. Touche. Both sides will be sanctioned. All right. Proceed.
I didn't hear the ruling on that.
Proceed. Ask the question. Re-ask the question. He says he's familiar with it.
Let me refer you to page 5. I don't want to misquote anything. Would you agree that the FBI guidelines state that crime scenes should be videotaped with the relative position of the items of evidence before they are touched or moved?
I check under 721.
Sustain. You're still missing one piece of the foundation.
Have you considered the FBI's guidelines in formulating your own opinions on the proper way to collect and preserve evidence for DNA testing?
And specifically videotaping.
No, I have not.
Proceed.
Have you considered the FBI's guidelines, the provisions with respect to identifying evidence items that are collected?
do you mean by identifying? As far as locating, or
With a unique identification mark.
I would have to make reference or be reference to where it's at. Like I said, I have read it, but I have not committed to memory all the different aspects of it.
Is it fair to say that your laboratory doesn't follow these?
No, I don't believe it is.
Can you tell me, let's look at page 6. The provisions with respect to collecting reference blood samples. Do you follow those guidelines?
It's not relevant. They didn't collect the reference blood sample at the coroner's.
Well, with respect to Mr. Simpson's.
But we did not collect that.
Do you know whether the Los Angeles Police Department follows the FBI guidelines with respect to that?
No, I do not.
When you get a reference sample from the police department, how many tubes are there in it generally?
Either one or two.
So there's no consistency with respect to the number of tubes?
It's usually one, but occasionally there's more than one.
Please refer to page 7. Do you follow item number 4 at the bottom with respect to labeling specimens that are collected for analysis?
Still no foundation on 721.
Sustained.
Mr. Matheson, did you participate in the preparation of the demo tape with Andrea Mazzola swatching a stain?
No, I did not.
Were you consulted before that was done?
No,
Did you have any involvement at all prior to the time that was made in terms of anything involving that demo tape?
no, I was not.
Did you even know about it?
Not until after it was done.
And that was done at the aegis of the district attorney's office, correct?
Not relevant. No personal knowledge.
Sustained.
You weren't asked to help plan it, were you?
I was
Asked and
not.
answered.
Overruled.
Do you know why Andrea Mazzola was chosen to do that demo tape?
No personal knowledge.
Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't.
Were you aware of when it was being made?
No.
Did you see it after it was made?
Recently, yes.
When was the first time you saw it?
First time I saw it was after it was shown in this courtroom. Actually, I saw bits and pieces of it while it was being shown, but in its entirety after it was shown in the courtroom.
Did you notice in that video that when she collected a control stain, that the moisture from where she was collecting the control migrated into the blood stain itself?
Assumes facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
Is that an acceptable technique to collect blood evidence, in your view?
She wasn't collecting blood evidence at that point. She was collecting the control.
Is that acceptable technique to use when you're collecting a control for a sample that you are then going to collect?
I don't see where it would affect your ultimate collection of that sample.
So that's acceptable to you. It
It would be nice if they didn't come in contact, but I don't believe it is going to have any effect.
would just be nice if they didn't do it that way.
Well, it's,
Argumentative.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
Is it right or wrong, Mr. Matheson?
I don't believe it's wrong.
Okay. Did you notice the number of times she rubbed her hand on the ground when you saw that the first time?
Yes, I did.
Is that a good technique when you're collecting blood evidence to rub your hand on the ground?
Well, in that she wasn't then rubbing her hand on the evidence, I don't see where that makes a difference.
So that's okay.
Yes.
Did you hear a testimony where she said she wasn't even aware that she had done that?
No, I did not.
That misstates the evidence.
Overruled.
Did you notice the number of times in are doing those things? It's okay.
What is not okay if it is touching an area which is dirty and is not clean prior to being used again.
If they are not aware that they're touching the ground, is it your belief that they are going to be aware if they happen to touch some evidence?
Sustained. Cause for speculation.
Mr. Matheson, I want to ask you some questions about the blanket. Do you have that in mind?
Yes.
believe that it is a proper procedure at a crime scene where you're collecting biological evidence to bring something from outside the crime scene, such as a blanket, and put it on the evidence?
No, I do not.
And the reason that's inappropriate is because you can inject trace evidence that wasn't in the crime scene into the crime scene by doing that, correct?
That's possible, yes.
And a blanket such as a thermal blanket is an excellent collector of trace evidence, is it not?
Improper hypothetical.
Well, we're assuming facts that aren't in evidence.
Would you say a blanket is a good collector of trace evidence?
Vague and calls for speculation.
Overruled.
I would say that yes, a blanket has a very good chance of picking up trace evidence.
And if a blanket is thrown out over a scene, it has a potential of depositing that trace evidence on the scene, correct?
Improper hypothetical assumes facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
If the blanket is taken and thrown out or shaken out or something like that, that would allow what was on it to be spread out throughout the scene, and that was to land on something, you have the possibility of contamination.
How about if it was just put down on something? Trace evidence could come off of it, couldn't it?
If it was carefully laid down, you have the potential of something falling off of it directly under it, yes.
Should your criminalists be alert to foreign things such as a blanket being brought into a crime scene in terms of their processing of that scene?
Argumentative.
Yes, I did.
Irrelevant.
See how much blood was at that scene? They can't possibly believe that a blanket brought there would produce that much DNA evidence. I mean, okay, yes, you can transfer DNA in the smallest way, but the tests are going to show that smally. You know what I mean? You'll see a small. You won't see the amount that they had. And he said he said it before, and I hope that Goldberg comes back to this, that he uses the same technique in his controls. And none of his control batches are picking up all this spare DNA that's floating around in clouds. Because there's not enough of it. There's not enough of it to produce as much DNA as was at that crime scene.
Would think that that's something that you should be aware of, that it's occurring.
So that's something they should check on, correct?
But something that is present that you should be aware of, yes.
Do you know whether Dennis Fung ever made any inquiry, or Andrea Mazzola ever made any inquiry as to where that blanket came from?
Argumentative, no personal knowledge.
Sustained. Those people have already testified.
I'm sorry.
Sustained. Let's move on.
Would you expect a competent criminalist to make some kind of inquiry as to where a blanket in the middle of the crime scene came from?
I think that would be an appropriate question to ask.
Would you expect a capable, competent criminalist seeing a blanket in the middle of a crime scene with blood on it to collect that?
It's an incomplete hypothetical.
Overruled.
I can speak for myself at this point. If I arrived at a scene where a blanket was heavily covered with blood and was advised that that was over the victim, I would not necessarily collect it.
To your knowledge, is there any forensic reason or legitimate forensic or investigative reason for putting a blanket on a body at a crime scene?
From a forensic standpoint,
Yes.
There is no reason.
Nicole's
do we
mother
have,
is thankful that they put that blanket on top of her daughter at that crime scene.
107 on it?
Mr. Blazer, I need to change court reporters at 3, so perhaps this will be a good time to look for that.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief recess for 10 minutes to change court reporters. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Have the jury just step back into the jury room. And Mr. Matheson, you can take a 10-minute break. All right, we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. We have a fresh court reporter, Mr. Blazer.
Thank you. Mr. Matheson, are you aware in this case that Dennis Fung conducted a pheno test on the 3 pedals of the Bronco with the same swab. I'm sorry, was it Miss Mazzola? Andrea Mazzola, sorry.
I've heard about it, yes.
Is that an acceptable procedure from your standpoint?
That is not how I do it, no.
That's unacceptable, correct?
That's correct.
And the reason being that you would not want to touch a second piece of evidence, potential piece of evidence, with an item which you've used to touch the first piece, correct?
That it was evidence.
Oh. I try and limit the use of a swab to one particular item. That's correct. So you're not carrying it then over to another one.
Now, how are the criminalists that work for you trained in the use of phenotesting? Is there any specific course on that?
A specific course on that one item? No.
That's fairly easy to do, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And it's a fairly standard procedure to do?
Yes.
Using the same, we'll strike that. The criminalists have as many swabs as they need in their kits, do they not?
I don't know about as many. They do have available to them in the kit a packet or two. There should be some in the truck, and there's plenty back in the laboratory.
Well, do you know whether or not Dennis Fung had and Andrea Mazzola had extra swabs when they did that to the pedals of the car?
Speculation. Sustain.
Have you talked to them about that in terms of correcting their procedure?
No, I have not.
I want to talk about packaging and unpackaging materials for purposes of DNA testing or preparation for DNA testing. Now, there's been considerable testimony about the use of plastic bags to transport blood samples. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
Now, is it your understanding that it is appropriate to transport wet blood samples in plastic bags prior to booking?
Yes, it is.
What can happen to blood if it's kept in plastic while it's moist?
Well, the plastic doesn't allow any drying process to occur, so it stays moist. And like I mentioned before, a moisture or a damp environment leads towards degradation.
Would you agree that the proper procedure is after collection of a blood stain by using swatches, you should try to dry it as fast as possible or as soon as possible?
I believe it should be dried as soon as practically possible, yes.
And the crime scene truck that your criminalists use has a refrigerator in it, does not?
Yes, it does.
Now, you indicated on direct that that refrigerator is used for chemicals and is not used for evidence samples. Did I hear that right?
As a rule, that's correct.
Is it available to use for evidence samples if a criminalist wants to use it?
Yes, they're not denying. We don't say don't put evidence in there.
Would storing evidence in plastic bags, wet blood stains, if they were put in that refrigerator, would that retard any degradation that might go on?
Yes, if you can lower the temperature at all, it helps slow the degradation process. It doesn't stop it.
Is there any standard period of time beyond which you should not keep wet blood stains sealed or in plastic bags?
I don't believe there's a fixed time frame. We suggest as soon as possible.
And is 7 hours acceptable?
It depends on the circumstances. I don't believe that's excessive. I would like, if it was possible, to get them back in the lab and dried before that.
But 7 hours in the back of a truck on a June day?
Still, I don't, if that's the condition in which they're working and that's how they had to be kept, I don't think that's unacceptable.
Have you done any studies to determine how fast blood degrades under those conditions?
No, I have not.
Have you read any literature? Are you familiar with any literature?
Specifically damp and plastic bags, no.
In your view, is it a bad practice to store wet blood stains for up to 7 hours in a van in the sun?
Like I said before, I don't think it's a bad practice. I would like it to be avoided if there's some practical way to do it. We want to get those dried as soon as possible. But as far as being a bad practice, no.
Now, you testified on direct about taking some fabric samples from the carpet in the Bronco. You recall that?
Yes, I do.
And the carpeting that you took that sample from had been cut out of the Bronco, had it not?
It's my understanding, yes.
Do you remember when you took that sample?
I believe that was on September 1st.
And where did you take that sample?
The carpeting at that time was in the serology unit.
How had it been moved from the Bronco to the serology unit?
Well, at some point it was cut out of the Bronco, transported back to the evidence processing room, where it was wrapped in.
There you go, guys. Now we know if you commit a murder, just put the body in a plastic bag, and then they can't use the evidence because if they don't find it within 7 hours, they can't use the evidence because it hasn't been frozen or chilled. So all of those murders where we collected evidence, 3 months later, 2 weeks later, nope, they all have to all those murderers have to be set free because the blood from the victims weren't chilled within hours after their death.
In white paper and stored in a box along with a variety of other items.
Oh, and please, if the blood touched the ground, nope, forget it. It's contaminated with invisible footprints.
That box was at some point transported into the serology freezer and stayed there, I believe, until in January.
Did you see that item as it was unpackaged before you took your sample?
I believe so, yes.
That carpet had been rolled up as part of the collection process, had it not?
I believe it had been folded. I don't remember it being rolled.
Do you think that's an appropriate procedure to preserve possible bloodstains on a carpet, to remove the carpet and then fold the carpet up?
If the bloodstains were damp when that happened, so it could come in contact with another part of the material and this transfer some of the pattern, no, I don't think that would be appropriate.
How about if it was dry so that it could flake off of the purported bloodstain? You wouldn't want to do it then either, would you?
Well, as far as the pattern is concerned, I don't think it would affect that. You'd be losing a little bit maybe with the flaking. That flaking process that you were talking about could then distribute blood to other parts of that same item.
If there was other cellular material elsewhere on the carpet other than where the apparent blood stain is, that material could be transferred to the stain by folding the carpet up, could it not?
It could flake off and potentially come in contact with another stain, yes.
That is a bad procedure to use to preserve that kind of piece of evidence, isn't it?
It is not the best way. The evidence will still be there available to you. Probably the best way would be to sandwich it between two pieces of paper and then fold it if you had to.
You wouldn't do it the way it was done, would you?
I don't believe so, no.
Now, I want to talk about the drying process back at the evidence processing room. You're understanding that the wet swatches are taken from the plastic bags and placed into open test tubes.
That was my understanding of how it was done in this case, yes.
Now, have you done that yourself with samples?
No, that isn't how I dry them.
How do you dry samples?
After I get back from a crime scene, I have a coin envelope with the one or two plastic bags that are in it with the swatches. I take the plastic bags out, cut along one side, cut along the bottom so I can open it up, and then I lay the plastic bag with the swatch on it on top of the coin envelope that it came in and allow it to dry that way.
Do you feel that is a better procedure than the one that was used in this case?
No, I think either one works fine.
Now, when you take but have you tried it the way it was done in this case in some situations?
No, I have not.
When you take a wet swatch and try to put it in a test tube, would you agree that it is likely to stick to the sides near the top of the test tube?
Well, if it's damp when it's put in there and it comes in contact with it, yes, it might stick a little bit.
And doing that, it might also deposit some of the blood near the top of the test tube, correct?
It's possible, yes.
Now, when it is allowed to dry overnight in that condition, the next morning there's going to be dried blood in that test tube near the rim of the test tube, correct?
There could be, yes.
Now, when these items are stored, when they're put in the cabinet to dry, they are all set in the same cardboard box, one next to each other, correct?
Yes, they are.
The items from Rockingham were put in open test tubes in the same cardboard box as the items from Bundy, correct?
You know,
Do you know?
If they were specifically put in the same box?
Yes.
No, I do not know.
When the swatches are removed in the morning, what's your understanding of the procedure that Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola used?
I don't specifically remember how they got them from the test tube into a paper bindle, but at some point they were transferred from the test tube, placed into the bindle folded, and placed in a coin envelope, and the test tube thrown away.
would you, as if you were doing this procedure, take pipettes and scrape the swatches out of the tubes?
That seems like a valid way to do it.
And if you took a pipette and scraped a tube that had dried blood around the rim, would you agree that you are taking the chance that some of that blood might flake off and get on other things like your hand, your clothing, the table?
If you were not being careful and just took the pipette and ran it around the inside and scraped a lot of the area and then allowed it to flake off, I suppose you could make that happen.
And do you think that if that were to happen, if blood were to flake off, you would always be aware of it?
If you are being so sloppy as to handle it as roughly as scraping the areas as opposed to just reaching in and flaking out the one little swatch, I suppose you could miss that.
And is that a good reason why, if you're going to use that method, you should change the paper on the table between each test tube?
Well, if you're not just randomly in there scraping around, if you're being careful with your pipette tip, just catch the swatch and flake a little bit of it out, I still don't see where it's necessary to constantly change the paper.
What about touching the rims of the test tubes with your gloves? Would you recommend that?
Overruled.
Oh, I think I'd tend to try and stay away from it. But if you're on the outside of the test tube and any sort of blood or residue is on the inside, you're not coming in contact with it, so it should not be a problem.
Is it a good procedure to take an item of evidence from one crime scene and take it to another crime scene if it has or could have biological material on it?
Overruled.
If that evidence is not brought in direct contact with the scene, if it's in packaging material or something like that, I don't see where that would be a problem.
If Detective Lang had asked you to bring the Rockingham glove for him to look at over the bodies at Bundy, would you have done it?
Sustained.
Is it a proper procedure, in your view, in this case, to take the Rockingham glove from the crime scene truck, take it in, step over the bodies so the detective can look at it?
If I was not standing directly over the bodies or directly over any evidence that was being collected, I would not have a problem with opening the bag up so you could see inside.
You don't have any problem with that?
No, the evidence is down inside of a closed container. I'm not taking it out, not working with it over the evidence area. It'd be preferable if I could get him out and away from the scene, but even taking it in under those conditions, I don't believe would be a problem.
Would you prefer that if the detective asked you to do that, that you'd say, no, let's do it over here by the truck?
Oh, sure. It'd be preferable to have him come out and step outside, but I still don't see where there would be a problem.
Now, if your criminalist is asked to do something like that, and they have a feeling that maybe this is not so smart, what should they do?
If they have a problem with something that's being requested of them from the detective, they should advise the detective of that.
They shouldn't just do what the detective tells them to do, should they?
No,
Overruled.
no, they shouldn't.
Now, you testified about control swatches being taken at the same time that swatches are taken from a bloodstain. You call that?
Near the same time, yes.
And the purpose of the control is to conduct the same kind of testing on the control as you do on the swatch in order to see whether you get some sort of positive result on the control, which would indicate something might be wrong with the test, correct?
It could indicate that there was potentially some problem with the sample, yes.
And if you had a failure of controls, would you agree that you should disregard the test results or perhaps do them again?
Sustained.
You understand what it means to have a control fail?
I'm not sure what you mean by failure.
You run tests on it and you get an indication that there's blood on it when you thought there was nothing on it.
Well, then the control, in a way, is serving its purpose. It's showing you that there's something there and alerting you to the fact that there's a potential problem.
Okay, in that situation, the control worked and you should disregard the test.
As far as disregard, just throw it out and totally ignore it.
Do it again.
That's a potential, yes. You'd want to maybe look at your results and what was obtained.
Now, if you didn't take a control, what's your understanding as to the accepted scientific practice in the community of forensic scientists that do DNA testing about not using controls?
Which type of test?
Sustained.
Not collecting controls with bloodstains.
Question is unintelligible.
Overruled. Just regular bloodstains, taking controls.
Well, you should, whenever possible, take a control nearby a blood stain that you collect.
And if you don't take a control, should you report a test result? What's your understanding of the accepted practice, or do you know?
Still think it's too much time to test.
I take it we're talking about conventional serology.
Well, let's talk about conventional serology and a DNA test.
No, one or the other.
Conventional serology.
In the case of conventional serology, I would still report the result, but you have to understand that you don't have a substrate control to see it. It gives you a little bit more information that maybe you have to be a little bit more careful about those results that are obtained from it, because it is not always possible to get a control.
How about a DNA test?
I
Think it's too much time to do that.
Sustain.
PCR test.
would feel that the answer should be the same, that you are getting information from the sample, but you have to also be aware of the fact that you don't have a control as to that particular sample, because sometimes it just is not possible to get a control for every sample you do.
Do you agree that if you take a control that doesn't show anything when you run the test on it, that doesn't necessarily mean there is not contamination?
It is not 100% indicator that there is absolutely no possibility of contamination.
Do you ever examine the control swatches that the criminalists that work for you collect to determine whether they are clean or dirty?
Examine other people's controls.
Yes.
But when I was doing casework on a regular basis, I was seeing control samples regularly.
Do you as a supervisor?
No, I do not.
Do you have any kind of system to check on criminalists to make sure that they really are collecting controls as opposed to just putting a clean swatch in bag?
That's our.
Or
No, we do not.
Now, you indicated that in your DNA laboratory, there had been a problem with contamination at some point, correct?
We had an indication of contamination, yes.
Now, the validation studies that you do involve taking known blood samples, testing them, seeing if the test comes out the way you expect it, correct?
Yes.
And you have run those validation studies in your PCR lab from the time you started doing casework through the doing of this case and after June, correct?
I have not. The people that do that type of testing continue to run those, yes.
And the contamination that you have testified to, when did that occur?
I don't have a specific date on it,
Approximate date?
but would have had to have been sometime from when we started doing PCR in October of 93, and I know it was before June of 94.
How long did that contamination problem continue before it was detected?
I don't know.
Do you monitor that kind of information for the PCR lab that you're in charge of?
I was advised that it occurred or was occurring at the time, and then I was advised that it had been cleared up.
Are there any reports or any documentation of that outbreak of contamination that describes how it was detected, what was done about it, how it happened?
sustain. Sustain. Rephrase the question.
The contamination in your lab that you told us about, is there any documentation showing the nature of the outbreak, how long it lasted, what caused it, and what you did about it?
Still misstates the evidence.
Overruled.
This argument is.
Overruled.
I know it's hard to believe, but I think we have 3 more days of him. But remember when Fung was on the stand and we never thought we would ever see the end of Fung, and now we can barely remember the guy because it's been so long. We had one witness image. No. We will get there. 3 more days of this, which means, oh man, I wonder if we're going to get to the defense in August. I don't know how to know. I don't want to look it up. I don't know. Okay, I would assume it's not Sheck, right? I would assume when the defense starts back up again. All right, there's. It might be here. It might be here. Maybe. But maybe not. Because this might still be the prosecutor's witness because I don't know them. But it could also be the defense's first witness. Wow, he's on the stand for a long time. That's so indifferent. The heavy hitters are coming. Not, I won't say soon, but soon. So somewhere around May 24th, we get the heavy hitters back again. We get the A team. The actual dream team comes up again. We are on May 3rd on the last part, and I think it goes from 3rd to 7th, right? I'm just wrong. We don't even have May 7th at all. I was just wrong. It goes the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. Nope, not the 6th, and the 8th. So, yeah, I mean, we'll get to the 24th. We'll get to the 24th. That's our next big milestone. May 24th, 1995. Thanks for coming out today, guys. I really appreciate it. I really do. I hope to see you all again really soon. Bye, guys. Thanks.